To start off, as you can see, there's basically no conclusiveness on Tua, even in the advanced stat realm of things. He is divisive amongst advanced analytic people, casual viewers, you name it. He's divisive basically everywhere, and that is the case with the stats themselves. He is only basically consistent with expected points added plus completion percentage over expected and success rate, as you can see, where he's third in both stats, which, if you're unfamiliar with either of these stats, I have 2 videos that break them down. They are some of the absolute best stats in football, as they define how well a quarterback, offense, and defense are playing. So it's a very do-it-all stat for EPA, and the same goes for success rate, which is similar to EPA. So, very useful. And in Tua's case, I think you would argue they're very, very useful, as they have him in very high regard. What is alarming is his PFF grade being 26th. I would not have guessed that it would be that low, and I can't entirely put my finger on why that is the case, because to some extent I can understand that he has some level of turnover-worthy plays, and that's something that PFF holds against players pretty heavily. But he is pretty legit in most of the other things that PFF values, such as being a deep ball passer, throwing with anticipation when there's not really receivers open, not having the greatest supporting cast, which is something that benefits him then because he's making the most out of what he's given. So it's a bit difficult for me to understand the 26th ranking, but it is just 1/4 of the equation, so it's not the entire, not the entire pie right there. So with that said, he is, again, really divisive, and I can understand that. His supporting cast is good in the receiver realm with Tyreek Hill, Jonnu Smith, Jalen Waddle. Those are all good players at their position. Mike McDaniel, a great coach in my eyes, and lots of people think that also. I'm not alone in thinking that. Not really a great run game, so I think that holds the offense back and makes things more impressive that Tua is doing things well. And not an exceptional pass blocking unit either, which I think is really impressive because with Tua not being very mobile, good pass protection would be rather useful, but that's not really something they have. They are 14th in pass protection when combining PFF's team pass blocking grade with ESPN's pass blocking win rate. So they're about that average. They have some proficiency at tackle with Teron Armstead, and that is basically where things end. He's a good left tackle, but that's the main contributor they have. Aaron Brewer really struggles with power on the interior at center. So things can be a bit dicey. Where things are very much so less dicey, though, is receiver, where Tyreek Hill is 43rd in yards per game and 57th in yards per reception. He would be much higher, as would all of these players, if Tua played the full year and they didn't have to resort to backup play like Skylar Thompson, who really struggles to get the ball deep downfield and struggles to move with consistency as well. So Hill is still, I think, an elite receiver in this league, and they have a ton of good talent. In addition to him, as I mentioned, Jonnu Smith, their tight end. He's 60th in yards per game amongst all players and 67th in yards per reception, which is very solid for a tight end. So he's a solid contributor. Jalen Waddle, one of the more disappointing players in fantasy, is still a very talented player in his own right, though. 72nd in yards per game, 53rd in yards per reception. He should be much of a more of a deep downfield threat than he is, but he is still a solid player. Devon Achane, their running back, is 92nd in yards per game and 138th in yards per reception, which is really impressive that a running back is that high. 138th, not the greatest for reception, but part of that is just the way he's used, where he's used in short areas, so that's something that hinders him a little bit. Speaking of being hindered, Odell Beckham Jr. looked like a really nice budget signing, I think, coming into the season, but has been really disappointing. He's really struggled. He's not really contributing in any meaningful way. And speaking of not really contributing in any meaningful way, we have their running game now, where they're 31st in rushing expected points added and 18th in rushing success rate. So they are not breaking off long runs despite having a ton of speed at running back. And they're only kind of consistently having success. They're below average in success rate. So they are really not too damaging of a rushing team at the moment, which is, again, something that holds back the offense as a whole. And that is, again, particularly something with Tua not being able to move very well. It would be nice to have a running game to relieve some of the pressure off of the passing offense. As for their defense, they are 13th in defensive expected points added and 14th in defensive success rate, which is very decent. They have had a lot of injuries, particularly on the edge, with Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips being hurt, but they're still getting good things out of the players that are playing. And with that said, I would say that they have 5 above average defensive starters. First and foremost, Jalen Ramsey, very balanced, super physical player, can tackle about as well as any cornerback or defensive back in general in the league, really. He had a down year this last year, but is back to being his all-pro level self. At safety, Javon Holland is great run defense, and he's a good coverage guy, so he's also really balanced. Calais Campbell, similar to the defensive backs, but as a edge rusher / defensive tackle, he's very balanced. He can get after the passer, he can defend the run, he can do it all. Zach Seiler, like Campbell, proficient in both regards. It sounds like I'm a broken record at this point, but it's really the case that Seiler, I think, might be a little bit better as a run defender, but not by much. He's very good in both regards. And then Jordan Brooks, good at everything except for pass coverage. Brooks is a great run defender, and he can pressure the quarterback really nicely as an off-ball linebacker. So that's very nice. They have some talent at every positional group, which is really good. And that is why they're able to be as strong of a defense even with as many injuries as they are. They have 4 poor defenders, though, with Jordan Poyer being the first one I want to point out. He really struggles in coverage as a safety, which has been kind of his calling card to be good at coverage, as he's a converted corner to safety, which I feel like maybe under the radar at this point. He's been a safety for so many years now, I think that might go unnoticed. Kader Kohou, their cornerback, he struggles with coverage and run defense. He's kind of useless this year. Anthony Walker can't cover as a linebacker. And Emmanuel Ogbah struggles with pressure. He's a very good run defender, but that is it. Overall, they have some real glaring issues, but they have some star talent to make up for it as well. Those are my thoughts on the Dolphins. Be sure to let me know what yours are in the comment section, and also be sure to like and subscribe for more NFL content.